Okay, so this question is from TS Games. Hi DF, exclamation point. I remember the quote unquote teraflops war was going on when the current gen consoles were released. Back then there was already talk about it not being, sorry, back then there was already talk about a one-to-one comparison not being possible since newer architectures might be more efficient, etc. This made me wonder why the hardware in the Asus ROG Ally is claimed as having up to 8.6 teraflops versus the Steam Deck's 1.6, which obviously doesn't translate in such a difference in real-world performance as we've seen so far. In fact, this would mean the Ally would be close to a PS5, which is out of the question, I think, and you'd be quite right. This made me wonder what these numbers actually mean these days, and are they now completely pointless? Thanks for your thoughts on this, exclamation point. Yeah, so this is a feature of RDNA 3. It's a dual issue FP32, where essentially, when you calculate teraflops on existing architectures, basically that gets doubled automatically because I think on current architectures or older architectures, you can process 2 operations at once, but with dual issue FP32, in theory, you can do 4, right? Which just doubles your teraflops. But yes, it doesn't make sense in terms of actual real world performance or judging it, because games are typically not tapping into that feature. And if they are, they're not delivering hugely beneficial results. The whole teraflop thing, it's kind of, I don't know what you make about this one, John, but it's kind of all blown up in the face of Xbox Series X versus PlayStation 5, really, hasn't it?
I mean, I think it just
doesn't really make sense anymore.
We've come to the realization where it's not really that useful of a statistic at this point. It does give you some insight into the hardware differences, but it's not really a great marketing point any longer.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised to see it kind of fall by the wayside.
Yeah. Thoughts, Oliver?
Well, I mean, are they completely pointless? I don't think so.
No, not
I think they're relevant.
Pointless.
Yeah.
No, it's basically theoretical compute, right? That's it.
Yeah. I'm just addressing his question. He says, are they completely pointless? I don't think so. I think they're relevant across, rather within an architecture, right? So I'm evaluating the relative hardware performance of RDNA 2 GPUs, one versus the other on PC. That makes sense. Across similar architectures, like from, I would say, GCN to RDNA 2, that span of architectures. Now, there is a little bit of a difference when you go to RDNA 1. It's a little bit, it understates it a bit if you just think about the teraflops there, but it's kind of roughly comparable, I would say, in terms of the teraflop numbers. But across vendors, certainly they don't mean much. Across certain architectural jumps, certainly they don't mean much. Just within an architecture, they do tell you something of the relative performance. Except, I guess, when we're talking about these closed boxes like the PS5 and Series X, where there is a theoretical 20% advantage for one of those consoles, but it's not manifested in a lot of software. So, it's just the way it is.
I think it's safe to say that you get a theoretical compute number, but at this point, it doesn't really equate to the gameplay experience. And I guess the first evidence we saw of that was Xbox One X versus PS4 Pro, 6 teraflops versus 4.2, and yet the One X was producing much better results than the Pro, right? And if you look at the actual architecture of the machine, there's more memory, there's more memory bandwidth. All of that means you get more out of the GPU. So you kind of have to look at things more holistically. And then looking at the Series X and the PlayStation 5, I mean, obviously Microsoft invested heavily in the silicon there, but that win in terms of, increased resolutions and frame rates, I think it's best to say it's patchy. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. Sometimes PlayStation 5 is actually faster than Xbox Series X. There's a whole lot going on there, and it's actually moving beyond the hardware now into software, into APIs, and a whole bunch of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I do think that the RDNA 3 situation with the dual issue FP32 is going to basically produce these wholly unrealistic numbers that are totally divorced from what we expect from, what a teraflop means for gameplay. But yes, the Ally certainly isn't close to the PlayStation 5 in performance terms.
No.